The Bagobo, a minority ethnic group in southern Mindanao, the Philippines. Think about their traditional cloth and clothing as a polysemic symbols of group identity and personhood. The range of meanings connects them to the larger communities of city, region, and nation. The Bagobo call their ceremonial dress umpak or clothing when discussing it among themselves, but use costume or costume when talking to non-Bagobo. The diminished use of such clothing for everyday use, as well as the increased visibility of iconic Mindanao tribal dress in high-profile regional cultural festivals, are repeated phenomena that the Bagobo themselves project. The deployment of Bagobo identity and other marketable ethnicities as a spectacle in the regional heritage industry, commonly approached from the lens of political economy, is understood and interpreted in a very different ways among the Bagobo. Costume, a neologism, symbolically and politically links them to the region and nation state. Umpak, although referring to the same set of textiles, does not suggest performance for others, but instead refers to one's existence as a Bagobo and as a person. The same dress is present among different segments of Bagobo, such as the neighboring Kuyangan and Ubo, who speak different languages, resulting in distinct names for otherwise identical artifacts, but share ceremonial clothing as a resonant idiom for articulating and expressing belonging to the community. The Bagobo are a proud people with a proto-Malayan features, and with a strong social structure, enable them as a group to integrate with the main body politic, while retaining much of their indigenous costumes, beliefs, and values. That said, most of the Bagobo have suffered dislocation due to the loss of their ancestral lands and the effects of modern-day insurgency. While many are economically depressed circumstances, a considerable number have attained a substantial degree of self-sufficiency. For instance, they are renowned for their metal craft skills, particularly in the production of brass articles by means of ancient lost wax process. Weaponry best exemplify Bagobo or innate traditions of metal crafting, while still others of Bagobo specialize weaving apaka cloths of earth-tone hoods, as well as basket making trimmed with beads, fibers, and horse hair. Their distinct ceremonial attire made of ikat textiles is likely to be referred to as either costume or dress. For the Bagobo, however, whichever word is used made a difference. For example, they used to tend to use costume or costume when speaking to non-Bagobo. Among themselves, they use umpak, garment or clothing. Costume is not just costume pronounced with a local accent. It referred to something more exact. For the Bagobo, the implementation of these cloths took on multiple meanings that delineated the many modes of being a modern Bagobo. Textiles continue to profoundly connect to ideas of the self in relation to the group, especially with regard to shared ideals of spiritual understanding and belonging. The Bagobo are by origin a nomadic tribe. They traveled from one place to the other by hacking their way through the virgin forest. The region was abundant with coconut land with tall trees and had a wide area of hunting grounds. The bow and arrow were used to both in hunting wild boar, deer, or monkeys, and fishing in crystal pure waters gushing from the slopes of Mount Apo. Apo means grandfather of all mountains and is the highest mountain peak in the Philippines. The land was also cultivated with various crops, but left behind after harvest time in search of a better place to cultivate. The inhabitants in the early settlements feared the anitos or spirits, which include deceased ancestors and nature spirits or diwatas, who could grant their desire through the offering of sacrifices. Their religion is an array of venerable gimokods or spirits, which have to be shown respect. The Bagobo also believe in a supreme being who inhabits the sky world, as well as a deity, a supernatural immortal being who will bring sickness and death to incestuous couples. The principal spirit is the great creator named Iyog Pamalok, Manobo, or Munama. The knowledge of spirits and ancient legends resides in all tribal women, better known as Mahabilan. Often they tell story of Tuwaang, a brave and strong warrior with different powers. One legend recalls the fight between Tuwaang and a giant from the land of Pinangaya Yungan, a maiden of the buhong sky who was fleeing from the giant of Pangumanon, came across Tuwaang, who was riding the sky on lightning. Tuwaang and the giant fought for the maiden. The giant used his magical powers and threw a flaming bar at Tuwaang. He was able to escape this ordeal by using his own magical ability and called the wind to fan the fire and let the giant be engulfed by his own flames. The Bagobo are a settled people, practicing agriculture as well as hunting and fishing. Their chief crop is rice, which they grow in clearings and mountainsides. Since this grain is their staple food, the whole routine of its cultivation is most closely bound up with their religious beliefs and practices. When in December, Orion appears in the sky, this is the signal for the celebration of the great yearly sacrifice and for making all things ready for the rice planting. Offerings and rice cooked in bamboo tubes, pots must not be used for this purpose, are made at a smith's forge, to which the men bring their working knives and other tools used in connection with the cultivation or clearing of the fields. Then the smith calls on his flat spirit to come and eat of the food and accept the tools were devoted to him. These tools will be used in field work. Although they know belonging to the spirit, the compensation must be made to him if a knife be sold or otherwise disposed of. For the next 3 days, no man must do any work. At the end of the time, the workers go to the field and set up in the middle of each receptacle containing an offering of areca nuts intended for Manama, the creator. In return for this, Manama is expected to keep mischievous spirits out of the field to grant health, large crops, and riches to the owner. Then, if it is a new field, and the incessant encroaches of cogon grass make frequent new clearings necessary, the trees and the brush are cut down and burnt, but no soil must be broken nor any further preparations made for planting until the constellation Marara appears in the sky in April. Prayers and offerings to Manama and to the food spirit Taragume precede the actual commencement of planting operations. The rice planter consists of a long shaft, to one end of which is attached a narrow iron blade, and the other end having fastened to it a clapper of split bamboo. The men make shallow holes in the ground. With these implements, the women following the dropping into the holes of the seed. Over with, they scrape the loosened sole and their feet. The purpose of the clappers is obscure. Perhaps they are intended to frighten away ill-disposed spirits, or it may be that the noise made by them as the planters strike the ground is pleasing to the guardian spirit of the field.